Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Let's start with the story of a horrible neighbor and the actions our OP took to get rid of him. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Bad neighbors. I was working full-time at a mediocre paying job while putting myself through college at night, paying for it out of pocket. This left me stretched on finances, so I ended up in a less-than-ideal apartment complex, and by less than ideal, I mean that the cops maintained a presence there most of the time. I knew it was my turn with an obnoxious neighbor when I first met him. He was talking loudly in the breezeway of my building. Why he wasn't on the balcony of his apartment, I don't know. Not wanting to be petty, I just turned the TV up and ignored him. It wasn't long before the talking got louder and my door started moving like someone was trying to open it. I jerked it open and the guy about fell in. It turns out he was leaning on it while having his conversation. After politely letting him know that it was very annoying, I give him an "it's all good" and close my door. Immediately he refers to me using a racial slur in Spanish to the person on the other end of the phone. I may not be fluent in Spanish, but I know some important slang. He'd have parties all night, sometimes with a dozen people in the breezeway getting drunk and rowdy. There was always trash on the stairs, half-eaten cheeseburgers, old milkshakes, etc., and cigarette butts everywhere. His large pit bull would bark all day, just about non-stop. Coming home from school one night, I'm walking through the parking lot, reading my phone, when I see a dog running at me growling. It's dude's pit bull rearing up to attack me. Dude's girlfriend yells at him, and he calls his dog off and breaks out laughing. Enough's enough. Someone's going to get hurt, so I complain to the apartment manager, but am told without proof their hands were tied. Great. I lived the next few months at the complex relatively incident-free, just the above annoyances, until I'm woken up one weeknight at 2 a.m. There's screaming and crying in the breezeway, lots of loud talking, and the sounds of incoming sirens. Looking out my window into the parking lot, I see dude run by with his dog. Looking through the peephole, I see a girl in the hallway bleeding profusely. Turns out his girlfriend and her friend were drunk and raised their voices at one another. The dog then attacked the friend, mauling her pretty badly. Police didn't know where either dude or the dog was, and the friend didn't want to pursue charges, so they left. Shortly after they left, dude comes back with the dog. I did call the police and let them know that he and the dog were back, but they never returned. Thanks, police. On my way to work the next morning, I stopped by the apartment manager and let her know about the incident. Again, she says she can't do anything without proof. I implore her to call the police and confirm, but she refuses, saying they get updates from the sheriff every month. Ultimately, her problem was that due to legal reasons, she can't seek to evict someone herself. Otherwise, it might look like she's targeting a given race or something. Fuming about the situation while at work, I managed to find the police incident report for the mauling online. I printed it out and delivered it to her on my way home. She had an appreciative look on her face and told me the eviction process would start before I could leave the building. True to her word, the bad neighbor was out at the end of the month. According to the apartment manager, they were PO'd and cussing as they drove away. Turns out he had numerous warrants, so had his girlfriend rent the apartment. Neither of them had family in the area. The girlfriend's family lived in another country, so they had no one to turn to for a place to stay. The icing on the cake was when the apartment manager let slip that when the next apartment called her for a reference, she'd kindly inform them of all incidents that occurred. I don't know what happened to them, but I do know they had a hard time finding a place to live. And our second story. We're not paying you to do IT work. Sure thing, boss. This is a story from long ago when I was working in law enforcement while attending grad school. The attorney I worked for had a reputation for being difficult to work with, but we got along great. I did have a problem with the office manager. She didn't care for me because I got a day off a week to attend my grad school classes and generally treated the place like a college job rather than the career she'd made out of it. Part of the deal that got me a day off a week for classes was I came in an hour earlier than the rest of the legal assistants. Office manager didn't care for that and took it out on me by doing things like lecturing me for being a minute late in the morning or a minute over on lunch when everyone else on support staff would roll in whenever and take long lunches to their heart's content. Enough background, now the story. One morning I get in and discover that all of the documents I need from the shared drive to get to work are gone. Even worse, about half the folders from the firm's shared drive are gone. I figured I could go to office manager and let her know what the problem is, but no one in that office was technically savvy, so I figured I'd take a shot in the dark. The solution was really easy. I went to the top level of the shared server and did a search for a client name. Sure enough, their folder popped up. And from there, it was easy enough to figure out that some technically non-savvy legal assistant, which was all of them, had moved half of the top-level attorney folders into another attorney's folder. A quick cut and paste and everything was back to normal before anyone arrived. I figured I should tell someone what happened so it didn't happen again, so I went down to the manager's office. I explained what happened and the fix, and that she might want to tell people to be a little more careful about dragging folders around. She looked up at me, and her lips made a horrible expression. "We're not paying you to do IT work. How much time did you waste that you could be working on important things? Get back to work." Okay, whatever. I wouldn't have been able to do any work with all of my work missing, but I wasn't poking that bear. Like I said, it was just a college job, and I knew I was out of there when I finished grad school while she was a lifer. So I went back to my desk and got back to work. Fast forward a couple of weeks, I come in an hour before everyone and find the same problem. I do a quick search and discover that some technical genius has once again moved top-level attorney folders into another attorney's folder, which meant half the office's documents were missing. Sort of a big deal for a law office that lives and dies by the WordPerfect file. So I grabbed some filing I needed to get done and spent the next hour or so working on that instead. Attorneys and legal assistants started to filter in. There was a 50-50 chance they'd be able to get straight to work or they'd find all their work gone. A quiet sense of panic came over the office that soon got less than quiet. The third-party IT people the firm contracted were called in at emergency rates because it wasn't their typical once-a-week visit. They're running a check of all the hardware, and with office manager hovering over them, raising hell about all the money they were losing, blah, blah, blah. Now, I despised office manager, but I liked the contract IT guys. So as I was passing by, I whispered to one of them that they might want to check such and such folder. Within 5 minutes, the situation was resolved when they realized the ridiculous situation that had brought them out there. A little later, office manager stopped by my desk and started laying into me for not telling her. This brought my attorney out to see what was going on. She explained that I knew what the issue was and didn't say anything. I shrugged and told my attorney that the last time I fixed this issue, she'd reprimanded me and told me not to do IT work. I was simply following her instructions. She turned a couple of different shades of purple. My attorney, who was my ultimate boss and liked me, got a good laugh out of that and told her maybe she should listen to me next time. That was the last of that because she ruled the legal assistants with an iron fist, but she couldn't say boo to someone if they had a partner backing them up. I left shortly after to focus on my school. Whenever I'm in town, I make sure to stop by to have lunch with my attorney, and I always swing by her office all smiles and talking about how wonderful it is being my own boss and not having to worry about all the bureaucratic BS that takes up so much of her time. And our last story. Break into my house? Go to prison. This happened about a year ago. I came home from spending a weekend at my girlfriend's to find my condo had been broken into, trashed pretty thoroughly, and about $18,000 worth of camera equipment and electronics stolen. I made a report with the police, and they did absolutely nothing. I tried to get in touch with the detective to no avail. Another unit in my condo complex had also been burgled. They took their computer, but more importantly, their car keys and car. My keys were also stolen, but I think since my car is a manual, they elected to take the much more boring automatic car my neighbor had. After a day of trying to get the police to take the matter seriously, at around 10 p.m. that same night, I get a ping. My laptop had been opened and connected to the internet. I look for their location, and it turns out it's at a hotel about a half mile from my house. So at this point, I realize I'm not dealing with criminal masterminds. I ride down to the hotel to see if the desk person will tell me which room they're in, since I do have a pretty good idea for where the room is, all except for which floor they're on. They don't, of course, but as I'm leaving, I see my neighbor's car just sitting on the street. We call AAA, and the police steal the car back and tow it to a different location somewhere else in the neighborhood. Since the thieves still had the keys, they could just as easily come steal it again. My neighbor is resigned to rekeying his car and dealing with that expensive headache, but it's still a win to have the car retrieved. While we're there, we thought it'd be a good idea to bring the police with me to the hotel desk person, but without a warrant or backup, they're unwilling to even knock on the door. The next morning, I get up nice and early, call the detective assigned to my case, and he answers. He had just gotten in, and the file is on his desk. I tell him what I know and ask if it's a good or bad idea to go to the hotel and wait for them to leave so I can confront them and maybe get some of my stuff back. He says that's a terrible idea, so that's exactly what I do. This forces his hand somewhat, and he ends up meeting me at the hotel with his partner. Just as I was introducing myself, 3 young males walk past the lobby, one of which is wearing my backpack. I say, "Hey, there goes my backpack," and the detectives detain the young men and find my laptop, my iPad, another laptop, still unknown, and a set of keys. Now, I don't know what probable cause really is, but 3 guys walking out of a hotel room with $3,000 worth of my stolen goods seemed like it should be. But no, they knock on the door but don't enter. Sucks, but I have insurance and that ended up covering it. Now for the revenge part. Only one guy was carrying anything stolen, so he faces a pretty massive receiving stolen property charge and pleads out to a year in jail. Not bad, right? Well, in my victim impact statement, I talk about how I feel unsafe now, how the insurance company had to pay me out, and I request restitution for the full amount plus the new security system we have installed on our property. The suspect is staring daggers at me. Apparently, in the interrogation, he was incredibly angry and completely at a loss for how he got caught. I'm happy enough to fill in the courtroom with those details, and I give an interview to a local paper, so whenever anyone Googles his fairly distinctive name, all this comes up. I have a protection order against him, and he's scheduled to be released soon, but with my new security system, I don't think I'll be having any problems in the future, and maybe he learned a valuable lesson. Probably not, but the felony on his record should be a nice reminder. Don't break the law, a-hole! Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.